one of the things that I didn't have opportunity to say is that this is a very contentious, issue. So I think one of the biggest issues, I guess you can say, is we want to work with the communities, and we want them to work with the communities for the dispensaries, for the location and how they're run. To me, placement is a big issue. We want to make sure they're in the right place. We don't want them in the middle of a community. We don't want them around school. We don't want them around our kids. We want them at the proper area. So if they're going to have something like this, which they will, location is important. So we want to push that issue.
Yeah. Delegate Mesker, weighing in on the marijuana issue.
Just real brief. I don't know if you paid attention or not, but the other day California just made recreational marijuana legal. I fear that what we're taking place here, what is taking place in our state, is this is just an open door for the gateway to recreational. I have to tell you, I am totally against marijuana of any kind. You've ever had some family members that are compulsive disorder? That runs the same way. I am against it, and I'll say it from the pulpit right here, that I am against any sort of paraphernalia, marijuana whatsoever. Until the FDA approves it. It's not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration, by the way.
Thank you, Delegate. Will you please support bills for enhanced school vision screenings, eye examinations for incarcerated youth for the legislative session? Delegate Mesker, you can lead this one off.
Yes, last year I co-sponsored a bill for vision, and yes, vision at an early age can change a person's life. There was some children that came to testify in HDO that were diagnosed as attention deficit disorder. Come to find out, they had a visionary problem. They got the visionary problem and their health problem went away.
That's been a major problem in our schools. They want to label our kids all the time. And it's an issue, and it should be an issue with every parent. There's times when kids do need help, but the proper label is very important. Every kid is an ADHD or ADD or anything like that. But I've met some of the parents also in my committee, Education, Health, and Environment. And we met those parents and some of the kids and their concerns. And that's really important to make sure that the kids get the proper attention that they need. If they're not getting it, we're missing the ball. So that's so important.
Delegate Long, you wish to weigh in on this?
Real quick. We actually had a bill last year dealing with this. Some kids have vision problems. One of the problems is monovision, which I have. One of your eyes sees far, one sees up close. I can't remember exactly what the status of that bill was, but there was a lady there, and it was for our committee that talked about children having learning disabilities. Once he got their eye vision straightened out, everything, they turn around. A lot of kids were acting out because they couldn't see the boards. But, we're fully supportive. What was that question? Something about incarcerated?
Would you support bills for enhanced school vision screenings for eye exams for incarcerated youth for legislative session?
I wouldn't have no problem with that. Anything we do to keep recidivism, we'll do. We don't want to see anybody keep going back to jail. And I think a lot of the problems, like I said, it's simple as a vision test. I don't think there's a problem with that.
Delegate Graham, wish to weigh in?
I don't think that's a real big hurdle to support. One thing I will say is I think it's just beholden. I think it's really a benefit to everybody to talk about funding. That's a brand new program. That's going to be a new set of funding. What most people don't realize is things like basics, like school construction. How about renovation for water or HVAC in schools? How many schools yesterday failed and their heat failed, and you just have a 16-degree school? We haven't funded anything in education, and that's just school construction. That's just capital funding. How about operational costs? The formulas for education are dictated primarily in law. and none of them are funded. So I don't think it's a real big hurdle for anybody to support a benefit like that. But I pay real attention to the politics behind spending, because frankly, we haven't done a proper job at living up to our mandates, and that certainly hasn't served us here on the east side for at least 30 years. So,
Thank you, Delegate. What can you do to add to the verbiage to the emergency petition for psychiatric crisis to include someone currently under the influence of drugs? It's like Nacian is a great idea, but we need to aid them by treatment, which is a drug addict, could be a psychiatric condition, as well as to include mandatory treatment. Sure. What can you do to add to the additional verbiage of emergency petition for psychiatric crisis to include someone currently under the influence of drugs? It's a great idea, but we need to aid them by treatment, which is a drug addiction, which can be a psychiatric condition, to get mandatory treatment. Delegate Grammer, once again.
would the person who wrote that allow me for a little clarification? Was that? Okay, so there's an emergent, let me ask, and I think I got it. So there's a petition for a law change in the case that someone is addicted, probably a hard drug, that another person can kind of take decision-making power and admit them. Okay, could you clarify for me then?
You have an emergency petition. So somebody, if you know that your family member has a psychiatric condition, and you know that they're managing something,
Okay.
you can call 911. 911 comes and assesses it, calls the ambulance, which they are mandatory hold for.
Everybody can hear you. You can stand up.
It's a mandatory hold for 72 hours in
Okay.
the ER for assessment. Is there any verbiage that we can add? Because drug addiction is also considered obsession, and it could be considered as a psychiatric condition.
Sure.
But you see somebody that is suffering from drug addiction, oh my God, I'm nervous. Okay, drug addiction, and they're currently under the influence.
Right.
They're not going to voluntarily sit there and go into drug treatment. We
Right.
have Narcan. Baltimore County has implemented Narcan training, which I went to, and that's a Band-Aid. So they're not going to voluntarily go for drug treatment, but can we add that verbiage to include drug abuse or?
I think it's something we could probably work on, but we'd have to start to,
Because that's where all the crime,
right.
it's not
You have-
marijuana.
Absolutely.
It's
You have an
a hard
addict
drug.
and they're driven by the addiction. And
Absolutely.
I get it. If you want, pick up a card and we'll talk and we'll see what we can do. And there's a lot of discussion about that. People don't really get how big the opioid problem is. I have two of my best friends from my youth died to a heroin addiction. I have a cousin who's addicted to heroin. I have a member of my family who's addicted to an opioid painkiller. I mean, it's radically bigger
It
than.
all stems from the physician.
Right.
It starts at the physicians, which they're taking care of now. I
Right.
understand that. But that has led from being addicted to pain medicine
Absolutely.
to going to bigger and better things.
Right. There are a lot of discussions about. So let's talk about that and dig into that a little bit more and see what we can figure out.
Else care to respond? Delegate Metzger?
Yes, ma'am, I just wanted to say that we had a hearing on this very same thing. There is a study going on that they're supposed to report back to our committee this year in HGO, because the verbiage that you're talking about is just very, very important, and it stems again from the opioid addiction, from when the doctors were prescribing and people were going doctor shopping and getting opioids from one doctor to the next. That stems from the doctors even prescribing themselves doctor shopping, and can you imagine going to a doctor that's hooked on drugs?
Thank you, Delegate. Our next set of questions deal with infrastructure. A new bridge over Bear Creek and North Point Road with sidewalks. Who'd like to discuss this? A new bridge over Bear Creek, North Point Road with sidewalks. Senator Selling?
A lot of people that live on North Point Road, that live in Sparrows Point, walking down the areas, there is a lot of areas that need sidewalk. In your area, anybody in this area, in the room, say we need sidewalks in our area, exactly. I know it's more than one location. And there are issues that I know that we've talked with the county council, and we've talked with the other legislators, and seen how we can go about to make sure we can get more sidewalks in our areas. It's important. There was an issue down in Mars Island where there were kids standing in the road waiting for a bus. I got a serious problem with that. And I think they should be areas where they can be safe, not standing in a road. So I think that area is important, and we need to look at that. But there's many more areas that we've talked about. And there are issues from one part of North Point Road to the other end, going down North Point Boulevard to the other part of North Point Road. And there are issues. But make sure you realize the measurements now have changed for new sidewalks. They gotta be 5 feet wide. So they're gonna probably take yard from people, and there's gonna be people that are gonna be a little bit upset about that. So, but it's important, more than anything, that we get some of the areas, we get some sidewalks. You know, it's important to me, and I know it's important to you. So I hope that answers your question.
Delegate Long?
I know about the bridge you're talking about. I'm fully supportive, but that's a county issue. The county's gonna have to pony up and pay for that. I know that bridge floods out quite often. Actually, this year, we had the State Highway Administration come down and remove some debris in front of the culvert that the water drains through, goes across North Point Boulevard out to the outfall. Because I know that bridge always overflows it. I think they got a stick-up area, goes up to 4 or 5 feet high. And I know it could be critical to patients going to Johns Hopkins. So we did reach out to State Highway. They did come down and cleaned out the area. Hopefully they'll take care of it. If we can get a new bridge down there, I'm all for it. I mean, with sidewalks, I don't see a problem with that. But that's more of a county issue.
Delegate Long?